let's get to Brock Purdy for a second.
Let's do it.
Purdy, I think, is the big story with the Niners in the first month is that Brock Purdy's found a whole new level to get to. Mm-hmm. He leads the NFL in completions of 20-plus yards. So much for the dink and dunk. He's got 18. Yeah. His average depth of target his first year was 7 yards. Last year, it grew to 8.6 yards. Mm-hmm. This year, it's 11 yards. Against New England, the average depth per of target was 15 yards. So he's driving the ball further down the field. Yeah. His big-time throws are up. He's 4th in the league. His turnover-worthy plays are down. He's 20th in the league, or 10th, I guess you want to say, or, out of 32 teams, he's had fewer turnover-worty plays than 19 quarterbacks have had more turnover-worthy plays than him. Yep. He's scrambling more, Dieter. He's extending plays more this year with his legs. His average time to throw is up 0.6 seconds because he's taking more time. He can win a bunch of different ways. He's first in yards per attempt. He owns a 112.6 QB rating through 25 games. It's the best 25-game QB rating in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
And since the start of 23, he's got better numbers than Mahomes. More passing yards, better touchdown to interception ratio, more touchdowns, fewer picks, better passer rating, better yards per attempt, all across the board better than Mahomes. Yeah. The Niners, you're seeing them. It's reflecting, despite the fact that Debo's been hurt, Kittle's been hurt, CMC is yet to play. The Niners offense is still second in total offense in yards. Mm-hmm. They're second in passing offense. They're first in time of possession. He's also doing this with a team that has the 8th most drops of any team in the league, and behind an offensive line that is, is bottom 3rd in pressure percentage allowed this season. So in a lot of ways, Brock Purdy, he's not being supported quite the same, but he himself has gotten better. And I guess the question I would have for you, Dieter, is, if this is what it is, the special teams is bad and the defense is mid-pack, mm-hmm. Can Brock Purdy elevate himself in this offense to a championship caliber level where they can go back to the Super Bowl with instead of a great defense, a middle-of-the-road defense and a bad special teams? Can it be done?
Yes, it can. To get to the Super Bowl, there's a whole other thing on winning the Super Bowl, as we've seen. This is MVP caliber play. Now, last year was MVP caliber play too, but it's clearly Brock this year, right? There's no Christian McCaffrey muddying the waters on who the most effective and instinctive, incisive player on the offense is. It's Brock Purdy. And I have made the consistent comp that this is post big money Russell Wilson for the Seattle Seahawks. And people roll their eyes. I get that. I get it. He was the boogeyman for the 49ers for years. You don't want to hear that. But now the powers are being used for the 49ers' benefit. And it's so reminiscent. It's not 1-to-1, of course. But when you see Brock Purdy pushing the ball down the field the way he has in the last couple of games, when you see him extending plays the way that he's extended plays, I don't know how people don't see it. And say what you will about the big money Russell Wilson, and we know how it all turned out. That was a while down the road. And they never had a losing season with him, no matter how shitty the offensive line was, no matter how banged up the defense was. If he had Tyler Lockett and didn't matter, Travis Homer is the running back, they were going to win 9-10 games a year when they played 17 or when they played 16. They were always in the playoffs. They were always in the mix. Now, the flip side was they never played a normal game. And I would argue that the 49ers are very similar in that regard because special teams is so bad, because the defense feels like it's being held together by spit, bubble gum, and string. This is a team with weaknesses. This is what happens when you have a stars and scrubs roster. Injuries really expose some weaknesses, but a great quarterback covers those weaknesses up. Say what you will about Patrick Mahomes this year. Yes, the numbers are down. The Chiefs keep winning because for all the weaknesses the team has, Patrick Mahomes gets it done when it needs to get done. Now, credit to their defense as well. Great quarterbacks don't have big losing seasons. And that's what I see with Brock Purdy. The floor of this team has been raised significantly. And that's a huge thing for this 49ers squad because, let's be honest, early in the year, especially after those back-to-back losses, it felt like the rug could have gotten pulled out from them. And that's with Purdy playing well. With all the injuries piling up, and the injuries are still there, with the way the offensive line was playing, with the way the defense, it felt like things were kind of on the precipice of slipping out of control. And then they did not play a good game by their standards against the Patriots. And they still won 30-13 because their quarterback's that good and their head coach is that good. And when you look at the teams that are successful year in and year out in the NFL, the teams that are in the mix, maybe not the favorites every year, maybe not the betting odds, maybe not juggernauts, but the teams that are in the mix that are going to be talking about, hey, we got a shot at this thing when the calendar flips to January, they're the teams with the best head coaches and the best quarterbacks. And it's not a ipso facto thing. Well, oh, they made the playoffs, therefore they have a good head coach and a good quarterback. We're talking about consistent contention, head coach, quarterback, year after year. That's what the 49ers have. They're in really, really good stead. And of course, they also have a bunch of really good players around them for when, to the point of the previous commenter, we haven't seen anything close to the best they could theoretically play. They're rounding into form in the best case. And in the worst case, they're good enough to make the playoffs still on a season where everything's gone to hell. Because it's really been snake-bitten in a lot of ways to this point, and I think it will remain snake-bitten for the rest of it. And they're still going to win 9 or 10 games, be in the playoffs, and hey, who knows what happens from there, especially if guys get healthy. Very reminiscent of last year's, obviously the circumstances are different, but very reminiscent of last year, Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford. The Rams had no business being in the playoffs, but they had the good head coach, and they have the good quarterback, as good as you're going to get in the league. So where were they? In the playoffs. And I just think that that's the baseline for the 49ers here. Even if you do think that, hey, their window has closed, you can still open it. Whereas a lot of teams, their window's closed, and now you got to go 2-3 years before you even have a chance to crack that thing open again. Purdy's just elevated to a consistent MVP level. He's got to maintain it 4 games. You know, we're not going to write it in permanent marker here, but the way that he's doing it is not smoke and mirrors. This is the real deal. We know Kyle Shanahan's the real deal when it comes to scheming up his offensive plays and keeping a team together, which is hard enough to do as a head coach. I've never seen this locker room fracture. They're in really good stead. So can they get back to the Super Bowl? You bet their ass they can, especially this year, even with things not going all their way.
Well, and you know, you're not a Super Bowl contender if you don't have the head coach and you don't have the quarterback. They have both.
Yeah.
They have both.
No doubt.